Have you ever had something in your life that you wanted to accomplish, but really struggled and haven't been successful in accomplishing it? Well, you're in luck. Today, we're going to go over how to accomplish goals in your life. I'm Dr. Rob Smith, and I'm a performance psychologist and coach and author. I help people do better at what they want to do. I help them reach their goals. What we're going to talk about today are SMART goals, but since I'm from the Boston area, we have to go with Smarta goals, all right? So it's a little additional element to goal setting that I think you'll find helpful. The term Smarta, S stands for specific. The goal has to be specific. M stands for measurable. You got to measure your progress. You got to measure how you knew that you accomplished it. You also want to make sure it's achievable. It has to be challenging but reachable. You also want to make sure that it's relevant. In other words, it has to have meaning for you. It has to be, there's a powerful why that goes along with why it's important for you to pursue this goal. T, it has to be time bound. In other words, there has to be a limit because otherwise the goal without a deadline is just a dream. And then A stands for adaptable. Because along the way, if anybody's ever set goals knows this to be true. Anything that you start to do, there are twists and turns that happen as you're trying to set goals and new challenges. And so that requires maybe for you to adapt not only perhaps the end goal, but also the steps that you need to in order to accomplish that goal. So to illustrate how to use the Smarta system, I'm going to talk about a teammate of mine back in high school when I played on our varsity basketball team. And this guy was nothing if not determined. You probably could call him an overachiever. He was slow, not that tall, could never jump, over 20 inches off the ground. He didn't have the physical skills that you'd see someone trying to accomplish what he wanted to, which was to get a college scholarship. He said, "Smitty, I'm going to get a college scholarship. I guarantee you." And you know what? Spoiler alert, this guy went on to do it. So I'm going to use his story. His story followed the S.M.A.R.T.A steps along the way. Some people, they know they want to make a change in their life, but they don't know how to get started. This not very specific, like I want to become a better person, or I want to become a better athlete. And I think one thing that my old teammate Mark had, and was that he had something very clear that he wanted, and it was very specific. That's where it fits nicely within our first step. S, it has to be specific. You can't have a vague goal. And also, because of that, you need to also be able to measure your progress because, like I said, these are steps that are going to take a lot of actions in between. You got to know how to measure your progress. One of the things that you can do, for example, if you were like Mark and trying to get a college scholarship, you would want to be able to measure your progress in terms of how well your statistics are, in terms of your shooting, your rebounding. And you'd also be able to measure your progress in terms of coaches who are interested in you. So in other words, you'll get letters of interest. The other thing that you can measure is the number of colleges that have asked for you to come do a visit. That's very important in the recruitment process, is that if the coach asks you to come visit the school, that's sort of a sign, an early sign that they're probably willing to offer you something if the timing is right and if you play your cards correctly. All of those can give you an idea about some definite clues as to whether or not you're making progress. A, achievable. Is this achievable? Well, now, if Mark set that goal for himself as a junior in high school, where he was when he said to me what he wanted to accomplish, he might not have had the time. You need to have time. Even though you might be able to get there eventually, if there's a certain time window, it might not have been achievable for him. But he told me this between freshman and sophomore year, so he had a lot of time to kind of develop himself physically, to attend all the camps and all the stuff that you got to do to get exposure, as well as to improve your game. Also, is it achievable within your resources? You have to see, do you have the resources? If you don't have access to a basketball camp, if your folks can't support you going to a basketball camp, can you get a scholarship to go to one? So it has to be achievable. In terms of relevance, why is this important? I'm not sure I asked Mark why it was important to him, but I'm gonna guess right now that it was probably important to him because he didn't come from a well-off family, and he knew that if he got a scholarship, he'd get a free education. I think he also had a bit of a chip on his shoulder. Mark wasn't always the easiest guy to be around because he thought very highly of himself, even when he didn't have a right to. But he certainly saw the powerful importance of going out and saying, I'm a Division I basketball player, I got a scholarship. So I know that there's a competitive part to him, that he was extremely competitive, and that allowed him to get where he needed to go. But it was very important to him. In terms of time, he had certain markers that he had to accomplish by his junior year, by his senior year. And so when I talked about those measurable stats and things like that, he needed to be averaging over 20 points a game. He needed to be getting at least 4 or 5 assists a game and maybe 1 or 2 steals a game. So for his position, progression. He was a point guard, and by the time he was a senior, he was actually 6'2", and he had some real strength. He lifted weights a lot, and so he accomplished a lot of what he had to do in order to present himself like a Division I prospect. The last step, which is adaptable. Mark, had an injury during his junior year, and he ended up having to sit out for part of his preseason. So that made it, he had to change his mindset in terms of getting ready for the best year of his life, which is what he envisioned. But he had to spend some of that in rehab, getting his ankle back in shape for him to have a good junior year and during the actual season. So he had to be adaptable. So what he did was he took that same driven determination and he applied it to his rehab exercises, to his stretches, he iced religiously, he used his anti-inflammatories. Basically, he took the same goals that he would have put into his basketball, but he applied it to his physical therapy so that he could be back up to snuff when the first tip-off happened that junior year. From following a system just like the Smarta system, Mark was able to accomplish his goal, and he got a full scholarship 4-year to a Division I program. And I had the pleasure of watching him play against the college that most of my family members went to, University of Connecticut, and he did quite well. So it was great to see that he was able to accomplish this goal. And you can too if you apply these same principles, but you have to have that same degree of determination. It has to be very relevant to you. So if you like this video, please mark like on the video, as well as to subscribe to my channel so that way you can watch future videos. And this is one of the many exercises that I have in my new book that's out called Shooting Out of Your Mind, How to Shoot a Basketball from the Inside Out. You can also not only order a copy of the book, but you can also download the exercises, including the Smarta goals that I talked about today. So thanks for joining me, and have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.